Hello, participants. Julie here. Just going to give a short presentation on the development of your research objectives. And there are the key problems and questions that we're trying to actually address as part of this seminar, and also as we take this activity forward into the next seminar. So what I want to do is take you through some work that we've been doing in terms of developing research objectives. It's a methodology that we think might help you in terms of taking your research forward. So formulating research aims and objectives is perhaps one of the most important steps that you're going to undertake as part of your CAB module. And this will also translate into approaches and also ideas for your capstone. This is probably one of the most challenging aspects of the capstone research. Getting your research objectives right early on will give you direction. It gives you ideas regarding the scope, the depth, and the way in which you're going to take your methodologies forward. So, spending some time on this at the early stages of your research is going to be very beneficial. So you've got a problem, hopefully, you've identified a topic, and you're going to try to then get an overall aim, which gives you a sense of direction, and then move on to look at your research objectives, which give you a roadmap in terms of the development of your research ideas. So whilst the problem formulation, the aim of your capstone or your research, the objectives are much more precise, and they're giving you sort of a specific set of tasks to undertake. So the more precisely you formulate your specific research objectives, the easier it will be to actually understand what type of study you're conducting and which methods you're going to be using in your future research. So this is a critical stage in the development of your research ideas. So this is our methodology, and we've been piloting this for a few sessions now, and it seems to be working really well, because it does help you to actually structure your research objectives and identify a number of categories that will take your ideas forward. So it's about thinking about the flow, the categorization of research objectives, and these can actually give you a really, really good way of progressing your thinking. So we've identified 4 different categories of research objectives. They are a theoretical objective, an empirical objective, an analysis objective, and an outcome objective. And these are going to get you on target in terms of the way in which your research progresses. So what I'm going to do is just go through each of these and give you lots of examples of how previous students have actually tried to incorporate this particular model of developing research objectives. So let's start then with the theoretical objectives. And one of the things that you've been doing on CAB is identifying literature that's going to inform your research topic, the way you think about your research topic, the models and frameworks that you're going to use as part of your investigation. So one of the key questions that you're asking yourself is, what theories and concepts are informing your understanding of the topic under consideration? And that's why we've been encouraging you throughout the 2 seminars that have been undertaken so far to actually really try to drill down into some of the academic background. So, for example, a theoretical objective might be to look at a particular concept or a model or a framework. And I've got some key specific examples here that have been developed in the past. So the first one then is to critically evaluate the current focus and academic research regarding personalization in direct marketing in retail banking. So we've got here an objective that is actually identifying the theoretical underpinning, and that's personalization, and also the concept of direct marketing. And you'll also notice that the objective is locating the research in a specific context, and that's retail banking. The second example I've got for you here is to critically evaluate models and academic frameworks that explore tourist decision-making processes. So we've got a focus here on decision-making processes, and we're locating it within the domain of tourism. So these two objectives are trying to identify where that theory is located and how it's going to actually help in terms of starting the research and understanding the academic context. So the articulation of the theoretical objective then is highlighting the conceptual focus of the research. And that's really important, that you understand where you are coming from in terms of your academic perspectives. So the objective may be presented in different ways depending on the capstone route that you adopt. So it might be a much more sort of practical model that you're looking at if you're doing a consultancy project. It may be highly conceptual if you're looking at the dissertation. So that's the first type of objective that we'd like you to think through. And as we've said before, and I'll reiterate it again, that means that you need to undertake academic reading and research using the peer-reviewed journals. So the next objective is to do with empirical approaches. And so empirical is around, how you're actually going to go about collecting data. And the empirical objective needs to focus on what kind of data is going to be collected. So we've already identified that there are different types of data. Primary data, which is data that you've collected or going to collect specifically for your research, or there's secondary data. And that's data that is located in other areas that's being collected through other sources. So that might be an industry report, or it might be some statistics relating to your particular topic, or some trends that you've identified that are important. So by looking at the type of data, you're implicitly beginning to think about, well, how am I going to get that data? So this objective begins to inform the development of your research methods. And, it's beginning to get you to think about, okay, so what data do I need? Where is it located? How am I going to collect it? And those are important questions that you need to be asking yourselves. So again, I've got some examples, and hopefully these will ground the things that I've been talking about above. So here are three different examples of empirical objectives. To identify and critically evaluate the key drivers influencing travelers' choices regarding bespoke travel agencies. So what are we asking here? We're saying that we need to collect data regarding what is driving the choices that travelers make in the context of bespoke travel agencies. And you might like to think about that. What sort of information would you need in order to be able to collect that type of data? So, for example, would it be to interview travelers who have used bespoke travel agencies? So we're talking about primary data, qualitative data. We're talking about a research method that is using interviewing, probably semi-structured interviewing. So within that, we're kind of beginning to think about, the data and how it's going to be actually collected. The next example is to survey customer perspectives of service quality in high-end restaurants in Singapore. So we've got a different type of data here, quantitative data. And already the objective is identifying that the route to that data is via some kind of survey using perhaps a questionnaire. So two very different examples there. Let's just have a look at the third one. To explore levels of employee engagement with the implementation of digital technologies in XYZ Limited. So this particular exploratory research is using qualitative data and a case study approach. And the case study approach is because the student has incorporated reference to XYZ Limited. So in writing up the proposal and in writing up your capstone, then case study research becomes an important dimension of the research design. So we've got different ideas here around empirical approaches and the way in which those are articulated as a research objective. So do think about how you're going to reflect the data requirements in the wording of your objectives. So let's move on to the third. These are what we call analysis objectives. And analysis is around, well, what are you going to do with the information that you've got? How are you going to, make sense of those, the data that you're collecting? How will you synthesize the work that you've done on the theory and also the data? So that this is a really key part here in terms of analysis. It's one of the things I think that is often left till the end, but planning early about how you're going to analyze data can actually be very, very profitable in terms of the overall work that you're doing. So let's have a look at an example. To critically evaluate, and notice there the language, which is particularly important. This is critical and evaluation. It's not just discussing something, it's actually really digging deep into what the meaning of your data is telling you. So to critically evaluate key themes and issues identified through in-depth interviews with employees in XYZ Limited using models and frameworks associated with technology acceptance theory. So there's a lot packed into this particular objective. First of all, the notion of critical evaluation. Some kind of thematic analysis is being alluded to here by evaluating those key themes. It's also linking it back to the empirical objective, which is the in-depth interviews, and it is locating the investigation within a case study concepts. It's also making reference to the theoretical objective, which is around technology acceptance theory. So as I say, there's a lot packed into there. It's simple, but there's a lot of thought that's gone into trying to link this particular approach to analysis through this objective back through to literature and also methodology. So for a more practical consultancy or business startup, the analysis objective would be associated with the reflective critique. So the practical consultancy business startup is a much more sort of business focused piece of work. But at the same time, you need to demonstrate that you have thought through how analysis is going to take place and what the theoretical underpinning is going to be. So the reflective critique has a key role in terms of developing the consultancy or the business startup. Our final set of or type of objective is what we've termed an outcome objective. And this is the type of objective that assists in identifying the potential result or conclusion of the research. So you can see a logical progression here from the theory through to the data, through to the analysis, through to the outcome. And this, for example, in a practical consultancy, might be a set of recommendations. In a dissertation, it could be a framework or a model that you've developed as a result of conducting this particular research. It could be a set of potential benefits for an organization in terms of solving a problem. It could be recommendations towards an action plan for solving the problem. So there is lots of different ways in which outcomes can be articulated. So looking at an example then, to evaluate and design an action plan for the implementation of proposed improvements to the marketing communication strategy of XYZ Retail Bank. So just looking at that, what we've got is an action plan as the outcome. And that action plan is going to inform the improvements in a marketing communication strategy. So nice, direct, simple objective, but really clearly articulating what it is that has come out of the research that's being conducted. The second example is to develop a customized business strategy for XYZ cruise industry leaders with a focus on China outbound luxury cruise travelers. So what have we got here in terms of an outcome? A customized business strategy. So these outcomes can be articulated in many different ways. It could be a framework, it could be a model that you're developing, it could be a set of very specific recommendations for a consultancy project. But what has come out of or what you propose to come out of the research that you're going to conduct. So these are particularly pertinent for consultancy and business startup projects. The outcome of a business startup project would be an investment-ready business plan, for example. The outcome from a consultancy would be a set of recommendations. The outcome for a dissertation would be model development or the development of some kind of conceptual framework. So what I would like to do, just to finish off this short presentation, is to take you through a full example of one of the projects that have been done in the past. So we've already looked at this so far in the presentation. This is a project that's entitled Evaluating the Relevance and Application of Personalization in Marketing Communications with Individual Customers in XYZ Retail Bank. So the concept that we're dealing with here is personalization. This is being located conceptually within marketing communications, and it is also located within a case study, which is XYZ Retail Bank. So the overall title there is giving you a lot of information about what this particular project is going to entail. So if I take you through these and just make a few comments. So to critically evaluate the current focus and academic research regarding personalization in direct marketing in retail banking. So the theoretical objective here is quite high level because it's wanting to locate the research in terms of an academic context, which is the idea of personalization. Also looking at direct marketing as an area that is going to be investigated. And then lastly, looking at the specific context, which is a sector, retail banking. So we've got quite a high level there because it's dealing with the background theoretical approach. The second objective is to diagnose and critically evaluate the factors affecting consumer perspectives of personalization of retail banking products and services. So the language again, the critical evaluation, the focus on personalization and the importance of understanding personalization and the way in which it affects consumer perspectives of the banking products and services. So some nice graduation there as we go from the academic through to sort of the more practical data collection. So focusing on consumer perspectives, that is giving us the clue as to where the data is going to be located. That could have been a little bit more precise by, giving some more information around perhaps the data collection tool, indicating whether a survey, for example, might have been involved in this particular study. However, these aren't perfect. These are real world examples. So the third one in terms of the analytical objective is to analyze key improvements in communication strategy that provide a greater depth of personalization for the case study organization. So using the word analysis, focusing on key communication strategies, and identifying where that analysis is going to take place within the case study organization. The last objective then, which is the outcome objective, is to evaluate and design an action plan for the implementation of proposed improvements to the marketing communication strategy of XYZ Retail Bank. So our outcome here is an action plan for the implementation of proposed improvements. So although not perfect, I think this gives a really nice example of the progression of these different categories of objectives. So your challenge now is to start thinking about your topic and thinking about how you can use these categories of research objectives to begin to formulate and to develop your particular project and taking it forward from CAB into your capstone. Your objectives will evolve, they will develop, but you need at this point in time to really start to articulate, start to understand the flow and the development of your research ideas. And undertaking this exercise really will assist you in understanding things like your data requirements and also the analytical requirements that are part of the capstone. So hopefully this has provided you with a little bit of structure in terms of this particular activity. And we will, as I said at the beginning, be taking this activity forward into the next seminar. Seminar 3 will start with this idea of research objectives and refining your research ideas.